along I-80 in Parley's Canyon. Ready for a hot tub or swim spa? Buy from two local guys that will treat you right and save you thousands of dollars. Visit Hot Tub Factory Outlets and Backyards of America in Draper and Sandy. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Our KSL weather, snow showers will diminish through the rest of the day. Then dry air moves in for the weekend with partly cloudy skies, and highs will stay in the 30s. Right now, 36 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation.
All right, welcome into Inside Sources. It's not Boyd Matheson today. Marty Carpenter back for the second time this week and riding shotgun alongside Greg Skordas. Greg, this is your first time in this week.
My first time this week, but it's good to be with you.
But it's not just tonight. It's going to be tonight, or it's not just for the next 2 hours. You're also you're pulling
KSL
heavy
at night.
duty.
Yep, double duty today.
So, I don't know. I guess you got to pace yourself is what that comes down to.
Yeah, let you run the show.
yeah,
which I usually do anyway.
Yeah, kick your feet up and let's just see how it goes from here.
All right.
Hey, a lot going on in the news. We're going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about today, especially for a Friday. Sometimes Fridays are, take out the trash days. They're document dump days. They're days just to say, here's all the stories we don't want anyone to talk about. But there's actually some pretty cool stuff.
No, we've got a
going
full
on.
show today.
Yeah, we're
with guests for most of the segments. It's great. And you and I are going to banter about a few things, I can tell already.
Yeah. So the first up, let's talk about the economy. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's talk about the jobs report that came out today. Some pretty strong job numbers overall, which I think surprised a lot of people because all year long we've been hearing about a recession. And this kind of gets us to the point where, well, that did happen in 2023. Unemployment falls from 3.9% down to 3.7%. Non-farm payrolls, that's one of those economist terms. Think of that as an overall job increase, essentially. 199,000 in November. That beat forecasts, which were set to be around 190,000 and outpaced October's gains of 150,000. So just to give you some idea of where we sit, now the U.S. unemployment rate is down to 3.7%. In Utah, it's at 2.7%. So we're still outpacing the
by
nation
a lot.
here in our state by a lot. And we've that gap kind of grew around the pandemic, or maybe a little ahead of that, and has stayed at a little bit wider than it maybe normally is. But they tend to track with each other, but the gap between the two seems to have increased just slightly.
Right. And you know what's ironic, and I think that our guest can help us with this, is that no matter what happens with jobs, with sort of the reduction in inflation, Bidenomics is not getting any love. And he is still blamed, or at least people still feel like the economy is not good, or that things are worse off than it should be.
That's definitely I think the sentiment. I think you're exactly right on with that. So let's bring in our guest, Mark Hamrick, joining us over the phone. And we've got this jobs report that looks like it's positive, or more positive than we expected, at least. Give us sort of the summation and what the national mood is when it comes to what this jobs report and wages report tells us, Mark.
Yeah, great to be with you, Marty and Greg. Sounds like one of you's pulling a long shift. If you just want me to stick with you for the next 12 hours or whatever,
That'd be great
to do that. First of all, thanks for having me. And I think the way you set it up was I couldn't have asked for any better. I think, there's a lot of dots to connect. There's a lot of things to dissect and separate. And on the face of it, this jobs report does look pretty darn good. The thing that I would sort of blow the whistle on a little bit is the headline number absolutely did come in better than expected, the 199,000 jobs added, and that is below the pace for the average of the year, which is trending well below the pace of last year, but still enough to keep the unemployment rate steady overall. But we also had the restoration of 47,000 jobs in total because of the end of the two different strikes, the UAW and the Screen Actors Guild, and that alone combined made for 47,000 jobs added to payroll. So that gets you back down to that October level of 150,000. And then we had a downward revision in the September hiring number, a minus 35,000. But the main thing here, which is not going to be the headline except for perhaps those who talk to me is the fact that we had more people in the labor force, more people looking for work and getting work to the tune of another 500,000. That got the labor force participation rate at a lower level, and that helped us to get the unemployment rate down to 3.7%. And as you note, your state, your area has done extraordinarily well in sort of economic strength and a low unemployment rate. But the national level of 3.7% for unemployment is just above the historic low earlier this year of 3.4%. And I think you mentioned at the beginning, and I do want to address the feeling like a recession issue because we've done some work on that. The reality is, in terms of checking the boxes off to meet the technical definition of a recession, we just haven't done that here. And we've been doing surveys of economists going back to early last year where they've said the risks of recession were heightened since then. And the feeling now is that that can be avoided, at least in the near term. And we published a story that was done by my fabulous colleague Sarah Foster this week, which gets into the notion of a so-called silent or quiet recession. And what she did was conducted a survey that found that about 6 in 10 Americans feel like the U.S. economy is in a recession. And I think that boils down to one thing, and that's inflation, where, we've had this historic inflation where compared to the pre-pandemic level, the consumer price index, the main measure of inflation at the retail level, has risen, wait for this, 20%. Okay? So if you've had 20% of your buying power essentially destroyed over that period of time, completely understandable that you, quote unquote, feel like it's a recession. But from the pure economic standpoint, it's not a recession. It just feels like one.
We're all better off. We just don't know it.
Well, unless you're suddenly got 20% less purchasing power, in which case, I see what you're saying. Like the numbers as they're reported can look pretty strong, but for the average American who's reporting their consumer sentiment, hey, I've got 20% less in buying power. That really hurts. I'm wondering about these jobs. I thought that was really interesting what you mentioned about the 2 large-scale strikes with labor agreements, those concluding that had a quick influx of people back on the payroll and back in the workforce. Do these numbers reflect like the normal holiday hiring ramp up where retailers need more people in the stores as well?
Yeah, this is one where somebody might say, hand me the aspirin, and because we're getting but it's a very good question, but there's sort of a technical answer, and that is, first of all, in terms of the reported numbers, we had a decline of 38,000 in retail. So the retail sector in this report saw a decline of 38,000 jobs. And then a part of the economy that supports that, transportation and warehousing, had a decline of another 5,000. So that's a decline of 43,000 jobs there, subtracting from that, total that we've been talking about. And where the headache comes into play there is that these numbers are, first of all, adjusted with seasonal adjustment, meaning they try to sort of smooth out the stats a bit. But in the real numbers that we're seeing out there as well, the industry has indicated that they really had the lowest seasonal hiring plans in several years, and I think that's very much related to the fact that the outlook for the holiday shopping season is quite restrained as well. So I think all that makes perfect sense, and what I would say is that we're just not going to get a boost in that sense with retail or sort of the transportation and warehousing distribution piece that we might have gotten if we were expecting a much stronger holiday shopping season.
All right, Mark, I'm going to give you a 15-second time limit and give you the real challenge here. What does the Fed likely do in response to these numbers? Any indication there?
Stays on hold for the foreseeable future, and the consensus is it begins to cut interest rates next year.
See, you could do it in under 15 seconds.
Cut interest rates next year. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. All right, Mark Hamrick is the Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst with Bankrate.com. Mark, thanks so much, and happy holidays to you.
Same to you, my pleasure. And if you need me to help fill the shift later, just give me a call.
Actually, I wish we could have kept him on for another segment because I didn't get to the whole why are we still gloomy about this, but maybe we can get him back.
Well, Mark, Greg might call you back later today, it sounds like.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks so much. Hey, coming up, the president's son, Hunter Biden, has been indicted on several tax charges after an investigation. We're going to talk about what this means for him and President Biden. More on that next here on Inside Sources.
It is the beginning of a season that should rekindle hope.
Casualties in this war, hard to comprehend.
Homelessness in Utah has been steadily increasing.
News is more than information. Spend your day with people who do more than report, who enjoy and celebrate Utah.
Did I just almost call her Dr. Jennifer Aniston?
I love stories like that.
The neighborhood school that looked like a spaceship.
They're not beautiful structures.
We promise to remember what's really important. You. A holiday promise from KSL News Radio.
Guys, does she need a little escape this year? Introducing Cozy Escape Pajamas from Pajamagram, America's PJ experts. These PJs are just the getaway she needs. So take that time off and plan a holiday staycation. Cozy Escape Pajamas make the perfect gift for your special someone who deserves a little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious next-level Cozy signature soft fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in Cozy Escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to Pajamagram.com right now. That's Pajamagram.com to order Cozy Escape Pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
Thousands of stores across the country are pulling brand-name cold and allergy products off the shelves. Why? Because an FDA advisory panel recently determined that a drug they contain, oral phenylephrine, is ineffective as a nasal decongestant. Navage offers a drug-free solution that's fast and highly effective at relieving nasal congestion caused by colds and allergies. Navage uses suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out of the other nostril to help suck out allergens, mucus, and germs. Nasal irrigation works, and Navage makes it quick and easy, but more than anything, it helps you breathe better. Don't waste your time or money on products that are ineffective. Trust drug-free Navage for fast relief to help you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier. Ask for Navage at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, or find us online at Navage.com. Navage, Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames, and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double-pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus, an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed, custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the vacancy left by the death of President M. Russell Ballard in the Quorum of 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been filled. Elder Patrick Kieran has been ordained to take his place. Second, it'll be easier to stay in your lane in Utah County, where UDOT has been restriping the freeway. And third, the Secretary General of the United Nations has invoked a rarely used provision of the UN Charter, hoping to stop the fighting between Israel and Hamas. 36 degrees and cloudy right now in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Except that instead of Boyd Matheson, we have Marty Carpenter and Greg Skordas. Marty, good to be back with you again. And this is interesting. Hunter Biden indicted on tax charges. And if you recall, Marty, this is sort of the next step in what's been a long, convoluted process. It was some time ago that he stood before a judge ready to take a deal on misdemeanor tax charges and sort of a diversion, they would call it, on gun charges. Everything went amok on that because he and his attorneys felt and told the judge, this is it. This is everything. The government has agreed that this deals with all of my issues. And the government's like, no, it doesn't. We can still investigate you. And so the whole plea bargain fell apart. Fast forward a little bit, and the David Weiss, who was the U.S. attorney for that district, I think it's Delaware, came in and said, well, I was appointed by Trump, but President Biden left me on because it's, there's an appearance of impropriety otherwise. He then gets appointed as a special prosecutor. In other words, the Justice Department, the administration is like, we're not going to oversee what you do. You go do whatever you want. And this situation got much, much worse for Hunter Biden.
Is a special prosecutor usually more cutthroat? Like, is that always has seemed to me like a sign of, okay, this just got more troublesome for the person in the crosshairs?
It's usually not necessarily. That's a good point. It's usually the prosecutor, or the district attorney, or the attorney general, the U.S. attorney in this case, saying, I don't want this to look like I'm doing anything inappropriate. I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor independent of my office. If there's any allegation of political bias by the prosecutor or any other bias, they can come in and say, look, I'll just get a special prosecutor on the case, and then it won't look like we're doing anything inappropriate. And that's what happened here, even though it was the exact same prosecutor. They just gave him carte blanche. In other words, he's not overseen anymore by the Justice Department, by Merrick Garland, who was effectively and still is his boss in his day job, but not in his special prosecutor job, if you will.
So it sort of takes him out of the line of reporting. Where does the funding come from for a special counsel? Does it still come through the same department?
Yeah, I'm sure that he's got some budget or contract or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, he's handed down a 9-count indictment. I've been reading it, Marty. Unfortunately, it's 56 pages long.
He really has been reading it. He's kind of a nerd that way. He's been looking through all of the documents.
It's crazy. 3 felonies, 6 misdemeanors, and the misdemeanors are the ones we talked about before that he had a chance to plead to. But the felonies include false and fraudulent returns in 2018, false and fraudulent returns in 2019, failure to pay taxes in 2020, and we're talking about the years really 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And let me just read you something from the indictment. This is wild. This is sort of a summary of Hunter Biden's grief. And this is what we call a speaking indictment. In other words, it's 56 pages long when it could have been 6. They're not leaving anything on the table. So you can read the indictment and you basically know the entire government's case. But on page 11, paragraph 37, it reads this. This is interesting. Biden spent millions of dollars on an extravagant lifestyle at the same time he chose not to pay his taxes. He spent approximately $1 million in 2016, $1.4 million in 17, $1.8 million in 2018, $600,000 in 19, and even through part of 2020, he received more than $1.2 million in financial support that he claimed he was going to use for expenses, but didn't pay a single penny in taxes. Here's the kicker. Between 2016 and 2020, he spent his money on drugs, escorts, girlfriends, luxury hotels, rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other items of a personal nature. In short, everything but taxes.
Sounds like quite a Christmas.
I mean, come on. I mean, and then they go through, and this thing is really interesting because they actually have done a really thorough job of going through his finances, because it's not necessarily a defense that you just don't have the money to pay your taxes. I mean, if you file and you're just a little down, but you still file. You say, hey, I owe the money. I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. Those are the misdemeanor charges, the failure to pay, not the willful disregard of paying, if you will. I mean, if you have the ability to pay, you got to pay something.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying here, that it's not like he was broke and he was trying to do this or that, and he's going to pay, or he's on some payment plan. He just didn't pay, and it went on and on and on. And I mean, this lifestyle that they go through with him is awful, and it's going to really make a jury mad, because how many of us have income? Nobody in this room, of course, I don't know you that well, has income of $1.4 million a year. And if you did, pay taxes. I mean, that's pretty good income, right? Even if you're in the 30 or 40% bracket, you still come out pretty well. But he doesn't pay taxes at all during these years, allegedly. I mean, we don't know the whole facts of the case, but boy, you read this indictment, it looks really bad for him.
Well, it would seem if you were going to spend your money on those types of things, that would give you more motivation to say, I should pay the taxes just to not draw attention to myself, to not have someone investigate this. And of course, this is all on one whole side of the ledger of what his problems really are, because this is a matter of how did you spend the money and did you pay taxes on the money? The other question of how did you get this money and why did you have the connections to get this money and make this kind of money? Right. That's where it's even more problematic for him, and politically speaking, far more problematic for his father, the President of the United States. And that, so it's just important to keep that perspective as you're looking and listing out all of those items, that's really only on column B of his problems. He's actually got column A that are problems as well. Right.
And then they go through his accountants, and they interview his accountants. And his accountants are preparing these returns, claiming that he's got all this business-related travel, even though he may not have traveled that much. He was making all these representations to his accountants. And at the same time, this is crazy, he's writing his memoirs. And in his memoirs, he's publishing this extravagant lifestyle. So he's, on the one hand, he's telling his accountants, hey, I'm doing everything I can. On the other hand, he's writing a book, trying to make a few dollars, describing his crack cocaine use 24 hours a day, smoking every 15 minutes, 7 days a week. He never told his accountants about that. Never told them about his extensive drug and alcohol abuse in 2018, and the fact that he spent so much of his money on things that he bragged about in his memoirs. I mean, it's just that, I don't know. I've practiced criminal law for 41 years, and sometimes people who do things like this are their own worst enemies. Because on the one hand, he wants to brag about it, and on the other hand, he's like, no, I didn't have any money at all. It's this indictment is really something else. It's like a book.
Well, what does a lawyer tell you anytime that you're in trouble legally, even if it's a traffic ticket? Just shut up. Just stop talking. Right?
Yeah.
If you're in the room like you see on all the cop shows where you're in the interrogation room and they're asking you questions, just shut up and ask for a lawyer. Right? Just don't say anything.
They don't say
the opposite of that is, go write a book about it.
Right, right. They don't say anything
it.
You say can and will be used against you for nothing. I mean, when I tell people that, of course, they don't listen. They think, no, I can talk my way out of this. And I'm like, well, no, you don't.
It always comes from like a fundamental misunderstanding of the structure of government, right? Like if you're dealing with the police, even if it's a traffic ticket in that example, that's the executive branch. They're enforcing the law.
Right.
They don't make your case there. Go talk to a judge. Go talk to the judicial branch, and they'll sort out whether or not what you did was actually worthy of some kind of fine or legal action of any kind.
Yeah, and he faces up to 17 years in prison. Obviously, he wouldn't do that much, but that's a significant term. I mean, this is a very serious indictment, and we'll see how it shakes out. He's still got the gun case too, so wow.
Yeah, so it's the tax issues now. These indictments related to tax, and then he has some on weapons charges dealing with. In Delaware, you're not permitted to own or possess a firearm if
you're a drug user. Right. That's another thing. He buys a gun saying, I don't use drugs. He writes memoirs saying, boy, I was really messed up at that time on drugs. So
we got the one Democrat that likes guns, and this is where it gets him. Right?
There you go. There you go. Well, when we come back after the break, how are people in Utah celebrating Hanukkah this year? The holiday began last night for the Jewish communities around the world. How can Utahns come together to fight the anti-Semitism that we see in this country? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The newest member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles may be familiar to many Latter-day Saints already. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says Elder Patrick Kieran was called to the quorum and ordained yesterday. Now, as a member of the Presidency of the 70, Elder Kieran spoke in General Conference in 2022 about how ordinary people do amazing things.
We hear tales of intrepid explorers and ordinary people alike who managed to keep themselves alive against all odds and expectations. And we can't help but ask ourselves, could I have done that?
Elder Kieran fills the vacancy left in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles by the passing of President M. Russell Ballard last month. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Census Bureau is proposing a change in the way they ask people about disabilities. Many advocates say the change will result in an undercount. ABC's Dave Packer has more.
What were yes or no questions as to whether a respondent is disabled, the new choices: no difficulty, some difficulty, a lot of difficulty, and cannot do it all. Only the last two choices would be considered a disability. Census Bureau testing showing the change sending the percentage of those qualifying as disabled from nearly 14% down to 8.1%.
That's ABC's Dave Packer. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 139 points right now. The NASDAQ is up about 65 points. And our KSL weather, the snow's tapering off, but it's going to stay pretty cool. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
A holiday message from Jackson Hewitt.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to get money the same day.
Starting December 11th, walk into a Jackson Hewitt for an early loan on your tax refund, and you could walk out with up to $1,000.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to get money. Missing out would be cray.
Appointments go fast. Book yours now at jacksonhewitt.com. Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Every year I tell myself, Doug, you can't procrastinate. It's time to get into Burt Brothers. Make sure that the vehicle I drive, the vehicles that Dee drives, and our family vehicles are all ready for winter. And Burt Brothers, boy, as these temperatures start to drop, soon the snowflakes are going to fall. The roads are going to be slick. You need peace of mind on Utah's snowy roads. Winter tires from Burt Brothers, they make all the difference. You can drive with confidence. Specialized tires designed to grip the road in the harshest conditions. They give you better traction, handling, shorter braking distances, and the gift of safety for you and your loved ones. And right now, save up to $130 back on 4 Bridgestone Blizzak tires through December 16th. That's only at Burt Brothers with complete auto care. They can take care of it all. Make sure you're not off on the side of the road with a little help from your friends at Burt Brothers. And there's a location for Burt Brothers near you.
This is the lunch rush at your local deli. Orders are flying in. Online, on the phone, and in person.
Order for Nick.
So is it possible that fast internet could help your business outrun the rush? It is with Comcast Business. Up-leveling your speed with gig speed Wi-Fi, powering all your devices, and fast downloads and uploads, powered by the next generation 10G network. With Comcast Business, next level speed isn't just possible, it's happening. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $59.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Plus, ask how to get up to an $800 prepaid card with a qualifying internet package. Call or go online to learn more. Ends 12/20/2023. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and automatic payments. New 50 megabits per second internet and Security Edge customers only. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig internet and compatible router.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Restrictions remain in place for both Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. A few minutes ago, we had a little bit of heavy and slow traffic southbound to I-15 moving through Kaysville. That looks to have eased. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, snow showers will diminish through the rest of the day. Dry air moves in for the weekend with partly cloudy skies, and highs will stay in the 30s. Right now we're at 36 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
And welcome back to Inside Sources with Marty Carpenter. I'm your host, Greg Skordas. And Marty, last night marked the beginning of Hanukkah, the Jewish Festival of Lights. This holiday celebrates the Jewish victory over the invading Greek forces. I didn't realize that. And as a Greek, I guess that kind of hits close to home. Yeah. But I still think we need to celebrate Hanukkah.
You can still celebrate
Hanukkah. And I will. Comes at a particularly poignant time in our country and in our world, actually, as Israel wages war against Hamas. That has been going on for about 2 months, just over 2 months. And we are honored to have with us a friend of mine, actually, Rabbi Remy Zippel. Thank you, Remy, for joining us.
Well, Greg, we were friends, but now that I found out that you're Greek and you got this whole
Hanukkah
backstory, I don't know how this friendship is going to go anymore.
I don't either. Your old man was always very kind to me, though. I hope he's doing well.
I think I'll extend that too. Happy Hanukkah to you both. Thank you for having me. Greg, for historical context, I think if you really kind of look beneath the surface, it was technically the Syrian Greek Empire, which only existed about 2,100 years ago. So seeing as I think you're purely Greek, not Syrian Greek, we'll cut you some slack this Hanukkah.
There we go. Okay, that sounds good. And, the Greeks, we lost more wars than just about any nation in the world, so we're used to it. So talk to us, Remy, about the importance of Hanukkah. I mean, it's important every year, but it seems like we have a rise in anti-Semitism in this country and around the world. So talk to us about the importance of that and the beginning of Hanukkah.
I appreciate the question, and the best anecdote that I can give you to answer that question is last night I got home from our big event in the Capitol Rotunda. We had a crowd of over 300 people, and I was chatting with some colleagues, rabbis from around the country, and the consensus was the same, just record crowds last night around the country, around the world. To your point about celebrating Hanukkah in the midst of the ongoing war in the Middle East with rising anti-Semitism around the country, I think Jews want the opportunity to celebrate proudly and visibly, perhaps more so than ever before. I think equally important, I think the wider community wants an opportunity to be able to support their Jewish brothers and sisters during this difficult time. And we saw that last night. We had people from every walk of life and every background there celebrating Hanukkah in the Capitol Rotunda. And it is especially meaningful this year. I think the ideas and the themes of good rising over evil, of light coming out of the darkness, of defending the Jewish people and us having to deal with persecution and anti-Semitism pretty much since the beginning of time are themes that are especially poignant for us this year.
As we see the demonstrations, the pro-Palestinian demonstrations that pop up in parts around the globe and in other parts of this country, I haven't really seen as much of it necessarily here in Utah. But as you see those, I'm always, Rabbi, I'd love your take on this. I always look at that and say the people who probably feel most strongly or are solidly in the pro-Israel side aren't going out to it's sort of a silent majority, right? And that's just because everyone's got things going on in life and you don't drop everything necessarily to go protest. So I wonder if A, you agree with that, and then B, if you could tell me how important that would make it to have an event like you had last night at the Capitol, where in the People's House there's recognition and support and a feeling of love being shared for the Jewish members of our community.
I appreciate that, Marty. I think that, to your point about the silent majority, I could not agree more. We have seen very large rallies around the country, around the world, On one hand, it's also fair to point out we've seen equally large pro-Israel rallies. It was 275,000 people at the National Mall back in early November. But it has always been fascinating to me to see some of the images that come out of these rallies and these gatherings. And a couple days later, you'll see at a far lower level with a lot less publicity, you'll see, 78% of Americans surveyed strongly support Israel in their war against Hamas. It's a war against terror. I think that it's a war that a lot of Americans resonate with and understand. We as a nation are not that far removed from sending off our brave young men and women to fight against terror. And so, yes, there have been some very visible rallies, but I think that it really does underscore that most decent people stand with the Jewish people during our time of need. I think seeing images like what we saw at the Capitol last night, that sense of unity. Tomorrow night, we will be parading, as we have done since COVID, from the synagogue here in Sugar House to downtown Salt Lake City with a full police escort with lights and sirens. And again, the amount of people that have wanted to participate in that. And interestingly enough, the cops that have signed up to cover that parade because they want to be a part of that is reassuring. It's reassuring, and it gives us confidence and reminds us, to your point about that silent majority, it reminds us that there are more good people than the opposite in this country, and there are more people that have the interests and the well-being of their Jewish brothers and sisters in their hearts and in their minds and in their actions, and it's an important thing to be mindful of.
Remy, let me ask you this on a personal note. Have you noticed a difference since the conflict began 2 months ago? You're visible, you're out there, and you're not shy about being a spokesperson for the community that you speak for. Have you seen anything personally that troubles you in terms of your being a very visible member and representative of the Jewish community, just over the last couple months?
Sure, no, I appreciate it. I've got to say, here locally, our experiences have been overwhelmingly positive, and I want to go out of my way to highlight that because I feel like, given everything that's happened over the past 2 months, it is easy, I think, for those of us in the Jewish community to kind of fall victim to that whole, woe is us, so tough to be a Jew right now. It's not easy, but I have to say here in Salt Lake, the love and support that we get from the local community has been off the charts. And there have been isolated incidents. There was the bomb threat against various synagogues within the first 24 hours of the war breaking out. But for the most part, we're very fortunate to live here. And I got to tell you, over the past few days, since the congressional hearing, I think that was on Tuesday, where the presidents of Penn and MIT and Harvard were asked about anti-Semitism on their campuses and the answers that they gave, the amount of people that have stopped me over the past 72 hours to tell me that they watched that and they watched clips of it and were horrified that there are powerful people in this country that feel that way about the Jewish community or allow those sorts of attitudes to go unchecked. It's just been a lot, frankly. I've been out with my kids doing some pre-Hanukkah errands, and my kids have remarked, how many times we've been stopped and commented to. And so, here at home, we're tremendously fortunate to have remarkable leaders at every level of government here. And I have to say that being a Jew, a visible Jew, a noticeable Jew here in Salt Lake City has not been a challenge. I'd say, on the contrary, it's been a blessing.
Rabbi, we'll get you out of here with this question. As a large portion, a majority of our state gets ready to celebrate Christmas right on the heels of Hanukkah, I think the fight against anti-Semitism starts in the home. And I wonder if you could just share any thoughts you may have on how a Christian household could incorporate some messages of Hanukkah as we go through the holiday season as a way of talking about the importance of respecting people of different beliefs and building a brotherhood with our Jewish brothers and sisters.
No, that's a great question. I'll comment with this for starters. I saw earlier, I'm not sure if it was earlier this week or last week, there was a lighting of a Christmas tree. I think it was in Sacramento that had been happening for years, and it was canceled due to a pro-Hamas protest. And someone sent it to me and they said, does this give you any sense of joy that, that Xmas events are being canceled? And I said, absolutely not. To the contrary, I think that I'm not one to celebrate anyone's religious freedom being canceled in any way, shape, or form. And I think it really speaks to the unity that we need to be showing in the face of terror. You know, this is an organization that doesn't want to see Jews practicing freely in the United States. They don't want to see Christians practicing freely in the United States. They don't want to see LDS folks practicing freely in the United States. And so I think it is a time as we all celebrate our winter holidays together to really be mindful of the unity that we need to be showing in the face of this adversity. And in terms of incorporating those messages, I think that with these holidays taking place in the winter and with the opportunity for us to realize the changing seasons and the need for us to be mindful of those less fortunate than us at this time of year and those that might be more susceptible to the cold or to hunger in this, you know, changing season time of year, I think that it's an opportunity for all of us to incorporate those messages of being a lamplighter, of being someone who brings light and warmth to the world around them, to be conscious and to be mindful of those that might have less than us during this holiday season, and to bring light to their lives as well, to not suffice with just celebrating around the table. For us, Hanukkah is the one time of year where we celebrate publicly, where we take that light into the public domain. And I think that taking all of those holiday attitudes and spreading them as widely as possible is something we can all aspire to.
Thank you, Rabbi. And please give Rabbi Benny my love this time of year and your mother, and just tell him how much I'm thinking about him. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you both. Appreciate it.
When we come back after the break, how can we win the AI race? The CEO of Cencor is going to join us. Stay with us.
Was this on your list for 2024?
Mike Lee could be on the short list if they head up the Justice Department.
Mike Lee as AG. And that would mean another Utah Senate race. Or not. The plot thickens for Your Voice and Your Vote 2024 on KSL News Radio.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Donate your car to Charity Hotline. This is Roger.
Hi, Roger, I'd like to donate my car.
Yeah, good. Leave the keys in it, park it on the street, and we'll send a thug. Tow.
Where's your office?
In New Jersey. Where do you want it to be?
Well, Roger, I want to make sure my donation helps Utah kidney patients.
It will.
Which ones?
Well, does it matter?
Yes, I want the money to stay in Utah.
And boy, have you got the wrong number.
If you want your car donation to help people here in Utah, turn your car into a kidney car for the National Kidney Foundation of Utah and Idaho. Hi, this is Luz Lewis Perez. Kidney Cars is the Beehive State's #1 choice for charity car donation since 1990. When you donate your car to Kidney Cars, funding stays in Utah to help local Utah kidney patients and funds local medical research. Kidney Cars gets donors the highest tax deduction, along with free towing. Visit towcars.org and learn more. That's towcars with a K like kidney. That's TOWKARS.org.
2 years ago, I decided to make a change that impacted my life. I started my SOTA weight loss journey. Within 3 months, I had lost 34 pounds of excess weight, and I didn't do it alone. My SOTA nutritionist was with me every step of the way. I feel so much better now, and I have excess energy to enjoy life. You can lose the excess weight as well, just like Steven.
I'd been wanting to lose weight, and I tried on my own. I either didn't keep up with it or, it just didn't work out. I'd been seeing things for SOTA, and I was like, okay, I gotta go see what it's all about. So we came up here and talked to the nutritionist and loved every bit of it. It was a great idea. It's a great experience. And, I couldn't be happier, honestly, with the results and being able to stick with something and kind of the accountability of it. It's been great.
The average weight loss for a male is 3 to 5 pounds per week, and the average female will lose 2 to 3 pounds per week. How much weight can you lose? Call SOTA Weight Loss or visit SOTAweightloss.com. That's SOTA, stands for state of the art, and find out how quickly you can reach your ideal weight with SOTA Weight Loss. It is state of the art.
Positive mortgage news? Interest rates have dropped and trending down from 2023 yearly highs. Click loansbyrick.com. Purchase or cashback loans. Visit loansbyrick.com.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio this Friday afternoon. A little gloomy outside, but even gloomy clouds can't dampen the spirit on a Friday afternoon.
There you go.
Greg Skordas and Marty Carpenter in today for Boyd Matheson. We appreciate you being along with us as well today. You know, you probably saw this, Greg. I know you have an alert set on your phone. Taylor Swift was named the Time Magazine Person of the Year a day or so ago. Taylor
What
Swift,
a surprise.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer call, right? Nobody had a bigger year than Taylor Swift. And I think if you had to say, like, not a person, but like a thing of the year, artificial intelligence.
Sure.
AI had a very big year.
I think we talked about it more than Taylor Swift because everybody was going, what is going on and what does this mean?
I have a 19-year-old daughter. I guarantee we talked about Taylor Swift more at our house than we did AI.
Right.
But still, ChatGPT was the big thing. Everyone's got their version of this coming. We're just at the tip of the iceberg on artificial intelligence. But the AI future is actually so much bigger than just its ability to help you write an email or draft a memo or research something on the legal side.
The bad things we hear about.
Right.
The goofy things. Right.
There are actually serious geopolitical ramifications for the entire world. How's that for gloom and doom? Serious geopolitical ramifications globally as nations and militaries race to win and dominate the AI future. I want to bring in someone because there's a great person locally here in Utah who can give us some insight on this. Adam Fife is the founder and CEO of Sencor. It's a Utah-based business that is in the mix on the AI future, specifically providing physical security for data centers for some of the largest companies in the world for the U.S. and for NATO allies. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right,
Happy to be here.
Let's start here. We all know about the space race and we've heard about arms races. How does AI and the AI race, how does that factor into this geopolitical status of the world?
Well, if you think about it, he who wins the AI race will win the space race and the arms race. It really underpins everything when it comes to geopolitical perspective because it will inform the strategic future of any country. And it's whether you're the winner or the loser, you will be affected by it. So being at the forefront of that is critical.
Adam, is the U.S. doing something as they have been with, say, chips and certain technology information to make it more difficult for other countries to keep up with this? I mean, is the U.S., suppressing, I don't know if that's the right word, other countries from getting the information to be on a par with us in the AI race?
It's a yes and a no. There is no better technology innovation ecosystem than in the United States of America. We've got some of the brightest and smartest and most driven individuals who kind of really push the frontier specific to artificial intelligence more so than almost anything else. And that's because, to a large extent, they're individually intrinsically motivated, and it's not government controlled. So the challenge with that is that because it's not centrally controlled, it's not centrally focused. And so the biggest challenge that the U.S. has within a quote-unquote AI arms race is that because so much of those efforts are not centralized and centrally focused on kind of advancing the agenda of a particular country, one of the bigger challenges that you point out that the U.S. faces is not just in suppressing the efforts of other countries. It is in keeping up with those countries from a national security perspective in and around artificial intelligence.
Do we have anywhere near the data center capacity we need to power AI at its full capacity or to its full potential as we understand it now?
No. Short answer is no. AI is driven by large language models. Large language models need data centers to reside in, and we don't have anywhere near the data center capacity to hit to reach the full potential of artificial intelligence. It is the limiting factor right now.
Adam, do we see in the future, maybe even the near future, Congress or maybe even the administration taking steps to regulate artificial intelligence and to jump in? I mean, we've seen schools sort of jump on the bandwagon. We've seen businesses sort of jump on the bandwagon. But it seems like lately, especially with what's gone on with some of the bigger Chat GPT type companies with the switching around of employees and whatnot, that maybe there's a pushback now. And do we see our Congress or somebody jumping in to do more of that?
I would argue that there is room for regulation, and there needs to be some regulation, because there certainly is a possibility for a version of AI to run unchecked, in the wrong hands, in the wrong organization's hands. And that was the challenge on OpenAI, right? You've got that nonprofit that runs it. It's a for-profit versus a nonprofit. One that's focused on making the money. The other one is ensuring that it remains ethical and moral. And so there is room, and there is a place for Congress to come in and play in that space, but it's a very tricky, difficult space. And I would argue that Congress is not currently equipped to be able to effectively legislate that. They've got a lot of issues.
I want to go back to the infrastructure of this. You mentioned that we don't have sufficient data centers, and so if we build more data centers, I think the next thing, and we've seen this when we've built larger data centers here in Utah, when the government's helped bring in larger projects, that there are resource issues on that, like water to cool and electricity to power it. So if we theoretically start building all the data centers you say we need, how do we power those, and what challenges do we face there?
Yeah, I mean, just for some perspective for your listeners, I mean, the power you need to run an average-sized data center, if it draws the same power as the size of a small city, 10 to 15,000 person city, a data center draws that same level of power. And so traditional, coal and natural gas and some of the things that we've traditionally relied on as a power source isn't feasible to be able to do that. And so we've got to look at other sources. Nuclear is the most immediate and available solution, and they're looking at not just the big nuclear power plants that we all think about, but what are called small micro nuclear reactors, where they put a small reactor on a data center, and it burns much cleaner while it's running, and it brings the power to the source, and so much less of a security risk as well.
When you tell people, okay, there's going to be even a smaller nuclear reactor next to a data center, that brings us to what I was talking about initially in this segment, which is physical security. So how then do you protect? I mean, right now you've got to secure a data center anyway. You don't just let anybody walk into a data center. But when you take that type of security and then all of a sudden you need to protect a nuclear power source on it, just tell us a little bit about some of the security risks or challenges, I guess, that go into that.
Well, data centers house, all sorts of, information. If it's the U.S. government, there's all sorts of classified information that are housed in a data center. You've got proprietary intellectual property, et cetera. So the security in and around a data center right now is already relatively robust. So you've got perimeters and offsets and guards that are on patrol and certain technical countermeasures that look at what's in and around a data center. So to add a pad and a nuclear reactor on an existing facility, the additional security upstep really is minimal. And it's one of the reasons to do it, because one of the biggest threats to data centers and pulling them offline is actually going after the electrical grid. You can take so much offline by damaging the grid. So by putting that power and that nuclear reactor on site, you really mitigate the security risk there to the power infrastructure itself.
Adam Fife is the founder and CEO of Sencor. Adam, thanks so much for your insight.
Yep, thanks for having me.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Taylorsville police had to search a house to find several suspects wanted as part of a drug bust. Officers say they'd gone to the house to serve a warrant, and the main suspect tried to hide in the attic. Several others tried to hide in different parts of the house. They were all arrested. The officers seized more than 2 pounds of methamphetamine, along with fentanyl pills and firearms. Even though we're headed into the second full week of December, still isn't cold enough to break out the heavy coats. Hayden Mayhem, the meteorologist with the National Weather Service, says last month was warmer than usual.
So our average high temperature was about 2 degrees above normal here in Salt Lake City.
So far in December, temperatures are about 8 degrees warmer than average, but Mayhem says the days will cool down next week with highs at or below normal temperatures. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. U.S. employers added just under 200,000 jobs in the month of November. That's according to the latest report from the U.S. Labor Department. Average hourly earnings ticking higher. The unemployment rate has fallen to something close to a 50-year low. Here's ABC News business correspondent Alexis Christoforous.
The Fed meets next week, last meeting of the year, to decide the fate of interest rates. Most economists do believe that given this report today, the Fed is not going to raise interest rates. In fact, it's expected to stand pat on rates for the third consecutive meeting.
That's ABC's Alexis Christoforous. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up so far 130 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up about 64 points. And our KSL weather looks like, it's going to stay cool at least through the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Up to a 30% upfront bonus and 12% per year guaranteed growth for retirement. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and these are the highest guarantees with annuities I have seen in my life. When interest rates are this high, there are silver linings, and annuity guarantees are one of them. Up to a 30% bonus upfront for retirement income. On $100,000, that's up to $42,000 guaranteed in the first year. And it's because of the economy and its high interest rates. Don't let anyone, especially another financial advisor, tell you it's not true. Up to 30% upfront just for opening an account and up to 12% per year guaranteed income growth. Don't miss out. This won't last forever. If you have an old 401k, get up to 30% upfront and 12% guaranteed growth for income today.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
A crash-free drive on all of the Valley freeways. We had a little bit of busy traffic southbound I-15 crossing the south interchange going from Murray to Midvale, but even that is easing. It's the higher elevations where you really need to be careful. Restrictions remain in place for both Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons, and snowfall, again, coating the road on I-80 and Pardley's Canyon. That's going to start just after, I'm going to say, let's say the quarry, all the way up to the summit. And plows have already been out again trying to clear that road, so just be aware you will be in winter driving conditions. The perfect present doesn't always come wrapped under the tree. Treat your loved ones with an unforgettable afternoon or evening of music and laughter with the Utah Symphony. Find your tickets at utahsymphony.org/holiday. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, snow showers will diminish pretty much through the day, except in the Cottonwood Canyons where it's still snowing. Dry air moves in for the weekend with partly cloudy skies, and our highs will stay in the 30s. Right now, 34 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
And sitting in for Boyd Matheson, Marty Carpenter, and Greg Scortis. And welcome back to a second hour of Inside Sources, where we'll dig a little deeper here. And Marty, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson has indicated an intent, at least, to extend the filing deadline for independent candidates at the upcoming 2024 election. And she did that, apparently, after a lawsuit was filed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is the leading independent presidential candidate. At least he seems to be somebody who's actually getting a little traction right now. Filed a lawsuit against the state of Utah saying that its deadline for submitting signatures was unconstitutionally restrictive. And to get on the ballot, obviously you have to get so many signatures. You can't just throw your name in and that type of thing. Yeah, lots of signatures. And he's saying, wait a minute.
I've been down that road a few times. Yes,
yeah.
A lot of signatures.
So I guess the question I'd ask you before we dig into this too deep, does it matter? I mean, to me, the Evan McMullin experiment, and I know that was on
It sounds like a rock band.
Senate level, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the latest track from the Evan McMullin experiment.
Yeah. You know, it didn't seem like and Evan ran a good campaign. You know, he's a very good candidate. But the numbers at the end of the day weren't any different than what I believe a solid Democratic candidate would have pulled. Maybe I'm wrong. But as I recall, they just didn't, they weren't overwhelming. Even though we were having this blast of media and sort of the numbers are close, it's this and that. They really weren't.
I think it's fair to say the excitement around that was what came with the launch of, we have an independent who's going to run, even though he essentially has run as a Republican before. Let's see how this plays out. But you're right, the results weren't as exciting if you're on the chaos side to say, look, an independent candidate can actually go out and compete or make a meaningful difference. I wonder how that's different, though, in like a statewide office in a state that's so Republican. I think a Republican is always going to be really strong here with our current demographics.
Right.
The exception, though, is still potentially in the presidential race, right? Because this has not been a state that's been overwhelmingly supportive of Donald Trump, as he's been the Republican nominee the last two times. So as there are some ongoing legal troubles there, as there's the growing discomfort, at least in some places, and maybe some growing comfort in other cases with a Trump candidacy again, it'd be really interesting to see at a presidential level, if there were a third party who were running, if that would make any difference. I think more along the lines of like in what would that have been, 91, I guess, or the race 92 when Ross Perot was in the race, right? That's somewhere where you say that's Republican or Republican adjacent or someone who's relatively conservative and matches up, but doesn't come with the the baggage that comes with a Trump administration.
So we have a candidate this year, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is apparently polling higher than any independent candidate since Ross Perot. He was interviewed recently on News Nation by Chris Cuomo, who described, and in that interview, Kennedy described what it takes to get on the ballot on all 50 states.
If you're an outsider like me, you have to get on the ballot, and that means getting about 1 million signatures and navigating 51 state and the District of Columbia rules. About 35 states make it easy. It's very straightforward. But there are some states that deliberately make it very, very difficult to get on, and you have to have signatures notarized, and you have to get them from every county, and you have to do it in a very, very short period of time. So that's why people say it is a heavy lift, but we are going to be able to do it.
But maybe it should be. I mean, not necessarily an impossible lift, but if you want to get on the ballot, we do have to have some restriction or some, even if it's a modest level of support to get your name on the ballot, because otherwise, I mean, you just throw your name on the ballot for whatever reason you want, just to be comical or to be, you're some movie star or a rap star or something like that. I mean, you would expect there to be some level of support to get your name on the ballot. You certainly have to give a high level of support to get involved in some of these debates that we'll be seeing in the next year.
And I can speak to this less on the presidential side, though in principle it's probably the same, and more to it on a statewide race because I've been involved in some of those here. And I've always thought that the threshold is important, but that it's currently too high. It should be enough signatures to vet you and say, this is a person who enough people will say, I'd like to hear more from this person. I'd like to know more about this person before I would rule them out as a potential candidate. But not so much that it becomes that it becomes impossible or nearly impossible to go get the signatures, or that it just comes at such a high cost. And I think when he says you have to get them from each county and you have to get them in a short window of time, that pretty much means you have to go pay someone to go do it. You can't really be expected to have a volunteer army that will go get those signatures at that time. So yes, you want to have enough that you can't just, someone who just wants to be an agent of chaos and say, I'm just in here for my own publicity or for my own benefit or for my own amusement to be on the ballot, but not so high that it becomes challenging for people who legitimately should be a choice for voters to be on the ballot.
In terms of Utah, Robert F. Kennedy actually talked about his recent lawsuit here in the state of Utah to change the rules so that he has a chance of getting on the Utah ballot.
The worst state, the worst rules were Utah. And they acknowledged that their rules are unconstitutional. And we now have, in 2 weeks, we got all 1,600 signatures in the state.
1,600 doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, Utah's the worst state, the worst rules here in Utah. They acknowledged that the rules were unconstitutional. So now we got the 1,600 signatures. I mean, earlier he's talking about, I need 1 million signatures in 50 states. Utah seems like it was fairly accommodating, 1,600 to get your name on the ballot.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, well, they're the worst and they're unconstitutional. And then we went and got our 1,600.
Yeah, over the weekend, right.
Does kind of take the air out of the balloon for you there, for sure.
So you've been around and you've seen a lot of elections, not nearly as many as I have, but at least you've been deep into them. Is this a year of a third-party candidate? I mean, and I say that when I'll mention this, Marty. We've heard different things about, maybe a Romney Manchin ticket, this sort of the voice of reason, the middle moderates. Now we're talking about Robert F. Kennedy, who to me seems like he's really just going to draw from Biden. I don't know what else. I mean, I'm sure Biden was hoping he doesn't jump in. But is this a year when a third-party candidate can get any traction in this country?
I mean, if you're trying to bet on yes versus no, you'd put the smart money on no, right? Because historically it hasn't happened. Are we inching closer and closer as a country to where each party is a little bit more out on its extreme wings and the vast majority of people are sort of that, what you often refer to as like the common sense middle, the silent majority in the middle? Probably. I was at an event earlier this week where former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer came to speak. And he was talking about this idea more in line with trust in the national media. and that fewer people than in previous years and generations on the left trust the mainstream media, and fewer people on the right. Far fewer people on the right trust the media, but the numbers are going down on each side of the political aisle.
Really?
And what it tells you is that in the middle, people trust the media less.
Right.
And so I think that would align also politically, that there are, as I mentioned, the extreme wing of each party is more and more in control of the agenda. And most Americans sit in the middle and say, I think we could probably find common ground. I actually think we're not as divided as you try to make us seem in the media, or as divided as politicians seem to make us seem when they vie for attention. So is there an opening at some point for a middle ground ticket to say, look, we think most Americans are here on gun control, here on abortion, here on this, and this. It's not extreme to one side or the other. It's kind of plays it down the middle. The math would tell you that, yes, that could work out, but we haven't seen it work out yet. And so until it's proven to be possible, then it seems impossible.
Right. Yeah. Well, we had an interesting foray into that 2 years ago, like I said, with the Evan McMullin race. And while I say his campaign was very successful, probably not the numbers anyone expected. When we come back after the break, as Congress gets ready to leave for the holidays, there's a whole lot left on the agenda that's still undone. Will we see a resolution to stall aid to Ukraine before the end of the year? Stay with us.
Stream BYU basketball.
Richie gets into the paint. Floater, yes!
Hear that breaking story with a flick of your wrist.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy resigning rather suddenly.
Get instant alerts on Utah news and weather. It's so easy. Get in your phone's app store and download the mobile app for KSL News Radio.
Happy 62nd birthday, Granddad.
Thanks, sweetheart.
I got you this.
A mug. What does it say? Beware. If you are 60 or older, you may be at increased risk of serious consequences from RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, compared to adults younger than 60.
Not all dangers come with warning labels. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about getting vaccinated against RSV today. RSV vaccines, including Pfizer's, are available. Learn more at bewareofrsv.com. Brought to you by Pfizer.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15's. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hi, Andy Farnsworth here to talk about my SOTA weight loss journey. Well, I'm 2 months in, and I have lost just under 40 pounds. I'm averaging a little over 4 pounds lost per week, and yes, that even included Thanksgiving week, where I did get to eat delicious food, although maybe not everything at the Thanksgiving table. But I can guarantee you that nothing I would have eaten at that Thanksgiving table would have tasted as good as it feels to put on pants 3 sizes smaller than I was just 2 months ago. My clothes fit me better. I've found clothes that haven't fit me forever that I've been able to pull out of the closet. I've got a pile of clothes to donate that are now too big for me. It's a great feeling to get to those kinds of moments, and SOTA, it stands for state of the art, has been the key for me. Go check out some of the 8,200 reviews on SOTAweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. They customize the plan to fit my crazy lifestyle and to help me meet my goals. SOTAweightloss.com. All I can say is, it works.
The semi-annual sale is underway at Foothill Oriental Rugs. Jim Weber is with me, and every time I come into the store, you have such a great variety for people to choose from.
I think the thing that differentiates us from most rug stores in the country, Maria, is that I'm a direct importer, and I've been doing this for 38 years. So every rug in my store is imported directly by us, and that results in you having a unique selection when you come in. And my prices are 25% below the industry average.
Yeah, but this is a chance for folks to come in and get some great deals for the holidays.
If you've ever needed a rug, this is a great time to come in and look at rugs because, like I say, our retail prices are better than the industry on average, and right now they're marked down up to 70% off. We've got a 9x12 Tibetan contemporary rug. Retail price $77.76. It's on sale for $38.88. We got a 6x9 Indian sumac. Retail price $1,092. It's on sale for $328. It's a great time to put a rug in your home. People want their home to look right for the holidays.
Don't miss out. The semi-annual sale is underway now at Foothill Oriental Rugs, 1460 South Foothill Drive, just south of Foothill Village.
Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. Your complete parking lot safety starts at GoPaveUtah.com.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Not Boyd Matheson, Marty Carpenter, and Greg Skordas today with you as we wrap up this work week. And, we've been talking a lot about, we always talk a lot of politics on this show. We talked a little bit about ballots last time and signature thresholds and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's a little PTSD for me. It starts to go like, I remember trying to get signatures for candidates, and it's a tough thing to do. But we'll shift gears a little bit now and talk a little bit more about like Congress, and are they going to get something done on Ukraine before they go on their holiday break? They're just a few weeks away from that holiday recess, and the Congress has still not passed what is one of President Biden's top foreign policy priorities, which is more aid to Ukraine. The administration says that the money for Ukraine will run out by the end of the year and warns of dire consequences. I presume that means internationally, not as repercussions or retribution on Congress, but dire consequences if that is not replenished. So it's time. I guess it could mean both now that I think about it. So it's time for President Biden to step in, at least. That's the question. Is it time for President Biden to step in and assume the role of deal closer? And does he have the ability to get that done? Jennifer Haberkorn is a White House reporter for Politico. And Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us to shed a little light on this subject.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. So what are Republicans and Democrats saying about the need for President Biden to be more directly involved, and where are we generally heading on getting this done or not getting it done?
Well, Congress is just a week away from when they're supposed to go home for the Christmas break. Obviously, they could stick around a little bit longer and not ruin their holiday plans, but they're nowhere near a deal on the border policy. And if you remember, Republicans several weeks ago said, we're not going to vote for Ukraine funding unless we get some kind of deal on the border. They want to see some policy that addresses the migrants coming across the southern U.S. border. So a small group of negotiators in the Senate have been working on this for a while. Those talks don't seem to be going very well. So the Senate Republicans and even some Senate Democrats are saying, you know what, this is too important, and the negotiations are not going well. So we need Biden to step in, resume that role that he's always talked about as, the Senate deal maker, and get the job done.
Jennifer, it seems like after the Gaza invasion, like you're talking about the border issue, the whole budget ceiling and deficit, and maybe just the passage of time, that there is less and less of an appetite with our congressional representatives to continue funding the war in Ukraine. Are we seeing that?
Yes, definitely. It's mostly conservatives at this point who are just growing skeptical. The war in Ukraine has been going on for a long time, and their frustration is that the Biden administration has not been forthcoming in their eyes with, how are the Ukrainians going to win this war? How is this U.S. money being spent? And they frankly say, I should say Republican Ukraine supporters say the Biden administration needs to do more here as well. They say that the president should be out there explaining to the American people that if Putin is able to take Ukraine, he's going to keep going and go into a NATO country, and that forces U.S. boots on the ground. And that this money that we're spending to support Ukraine is actually being spent here in the United States on weapons. These are U.S. jobs and U.S. factories that are producing these weapons to send overseas. So there's a lot of frustration, frankly, on the Republican side. Both from the Republicans who are frustrated with spending money in Ukraine, and the Republicans who want to spend money in Ukraine saying that the administration isn't doing enough.
How has the president been involved in the past, whether it's in his position as president or obviously he spent a lot of time in the Senate? How has he played the role of deal cutter in the past, and what are the risks for him if he gets involved as commander-in-chief?
Yeah, certainly. So if you remember in his presidential campaign, he sold himself largely on, that he's this negotiator. He's able to cut deals with the other side because he did that when he was vice president. He had a good relationship with the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. They were able to cut some deals, particularly when President Obama wasn't able to do so. So he sold himself on, I can work with Republicans, I can get deals done. Since he's become president, it's been kind of interesting in that he has kind of left the thorny legislative problems up to Congress. His administration has really said, Congress has to sort this out, and he has stepped in a couple times, but it largely hasn't worked out well when he has. If you remember Build Back Better, one of the big social spending bills that the administration wanted to cut, Biden tried to work on that with Joe Manchin. That didn't go well. They ended up having they didn't come up with a deal and ended up passing something much smaller than what the president wanted. So it's been interesting to me that most of Biden's career was this deal maker, and in his presidential tenure, the administration has found itself kind of saying, Senate, you do your thing, come up with, do your negotiating, and we'll see what we can come up with. And, to their credit, they've been very successful with that. In the first 2 years of the president's term, they passed a lot of legislation that Democrats really wanted. And so it's fair to say that this strategy has worked, and, it's not something that they would be wise to ditch at this point. That said, the administration has talked so much about how Ukraine needs to get this funding, and we're coming up to the end of the year, and it's putting that strategy to the test.
Jennifer, when we started this segment, we talked about what you just mentioned, and that is that the money for Ukraine could run out by the end of this year. I mean, we're a week into December. Can Congress, I know can probably isn't the right word, but politically, can they just avoid this and let it just run out? I mean, it seems like the consequences, not only to Congress but to our country, to the world, is pretty outrageous for them to simply ignore this. And I know that there are other issues, border, maybe the Israeli conflict, that may be taking precedence. But at some point, they do have to address this, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, Ukraine supporters in both parties would certainly argue that they can't let this money run out. That, the administration has said that the money would run out at the end of the year, and they would have to reduce, what they can send to Ukraine, and that would put the Ukrainian army on their heels and allow the Russians to make significant gains in Ukraine. So certainly Ukraine supporters are very worried about that possibility. And they would, if they were here, they would be saying, we can't let this happen. Like, we need to stay through Christmas. We need to do whatever we have to do to get this done. And, again, those conservatives who are skeptical of this funding are skeptical of that argument, frankly, which is one of the things that's frustrating to the Ukraine supporters, that they feel like they haven't successfully conveyed the urgency here. And, we saw President Biden this week make some remarks before the Senate held a test vote on the Ukraine funding, which ultimately failed. And, Biden said that if we really risk here not just Russia advancing in Ukraine, but the U.S. national interest taking a hit if we're empowering Vladimir Putin here.
We've got just about a minute left, and I just want to get your take on this, or at least you could update me on this. Where is public sentiment on this? What does the polling show right now? Where are the people in the country, not just the politicians, on that we still support Ukraine? It feels like there's support for the general effort, but people are getting tired of just seeing money go outside of the country when there are problems to solve at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have seen public support for Ukraine go down. I mean, it's not in a dire point, but Republicans, I should say the Republicans who support Ukraine, that's one of the reasons they want to see Biden speaking about this more, is they feel like if Biden was out there making the case saying, look at all these jobs that we're supporting by supporting, weapon manufacturing for Ukraine, that support for the effort would increase. They argue that this is part of Biden's job, is to boost those poll numbers by making that case to the public.
Jennifer Haberkorn is a White House reporter for Politico. Jennifer, thanks so much and have a wonderful weekend.
Great to talk with you guys. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has announced the newest member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. More on that when we come back on Inside Sources.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top local story this hour. New numbers from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services show that suicide rates in the state went up by 12% in 2022. The department's Dr. Michael Staley says this is the first big increase since 2018.
And every other tragic event that we've experienced over the last many decades, the September 11th attacks, the Great Recession in 2008, we've seen this 2-year lag period, an increase in suicide. So we knew that this was a possibility coming out of the pandemic.
While the numbers are high, Staley says suicide prevention resources for Utah are increasing as well. The Safe UT app and the 988 hotline are among the resources for people who are experiencing suicidal thoughts. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Ethan Crumbley has been sentenced to life in prison for killing 4 students, wounding more, and terrorizing Michigan's Oxford High School in 2021. The judge rejected pleas for a shorter sentence because he's still a teenager. Judge Kwame Rose's decision followed anguished remarks by families of the deceased and survivors who spoke about how that tragedy has affected them. We've seen gasoline prices drop across the country. That trend could continue through the rest of the winter. Gas Buddy's Patrick DeHaan tells ABC News that while prices could still tick up with major weather or global impacts, he expects them to stay low.
Barring any major unexpected developments, I think the odds of that prices remaining relatively low are pretty solid through February.
AAA says the average gasoline price in Utah has dropped to just over $3 a gallon. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up by 130 points. The NASDAQ was up about 64. The S&P 500 up 18 on the day. And our KSL weather, it looks like things are going to stay cool and cloudy through the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Guys, does she need a little escape this year? Introducing Cozy Escape Pajamas from Pajamagram, America's PJ experts. These PJs are just the getaway she needs. So take that time off and plan a holiday staycation. Cozy Escape Pajamas make the perfect gift for your special someone who deserves a little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious next-level Cozy signature soft fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in Cozy Escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to Pajamagram.com right now. That's Pajamagram.com to order Cozy Escape Pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
Every year I tell myself, Doug, you can't procrastinate. It's time to get into Burt Brothers. Make sure that the vehicle I drive, the vehicles that Dee drives, and our family vehicles are all ready for winter. And Burt Brothers, boy, as these temperatures start to drop, soon the snowflakes are going to fall, the roads are going to be slick. You need peace of mind on Utah's snowy roads. Winter tires from Burt Brothers, they make all the difference. You can drive with confidence. Specialized tires designed to grip the road in the harshest conditions. They give you better traction, handling, shorter braking distances, and the gift of safety for you and your loved ones. And right now, save up to $130 back on 4 Bridgestone Blizzak tires through December 16th. That's only at Burt Brothers with complete auto care. They can take care of it all. Make sure you're not off on the side of the road with a little help from your friends at Burt Brothers. And there's a location for Burt Brothers near you.
Is using separate office technology like business telephones, chat, video conferencing, and file transferring complicated and pricey? What if all of those things were bundled into one simple product that has over 99.9% uptime, crystal clear quality, and is affordable? And what if you could get your business telephone bundle from a proven office technology partner like Les Olson IT? You can.
Les Olson IT.
Positive mortgage news? Interest rates have dropped and trending down from 2023 yearly highs. Click loansbyrick.com. Purchase or cashback loans. Visit loansbyrick.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
We've had an accident northbound I-15 involving a couple of vehicles just after 3300 South. Traffic was stopped for just a minute or so they could get all of these vehicles out of traffic over to the right shoulder, a little bit of backup left. And then restrictions, Big and Little Cottonwood, snow coming down on I-80 and Parleys. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, snow showers will diminish through the day, and dry air moves in for the weekend with partly cloudy skies. Highs will stay in the 30s. Right now, 36 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Marty Carpenter and Greg Skordas in today for Boyd Matheson. And we teased this a little bit before we went to break. It's news that I think pretty much the entire state of Utah knows at this point. It's the kind of thing that travels very quickly once it's announced. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints called Elder Patrick Kieran to be the newest member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. The call came as a surprise, I think, to many that it happened outside of General Conference. Like everyone else was thinking, in April we'll get to this. We'll find out who's taking over for the recently deceased Elder M. Russell Ballard. So before we get into who Elder Kieran is and why he was called before General Conference, I want to just set this up to give you a little context on him with a funny exchange that he had with Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, now his colleague in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, back in the April 2022 General Conference.
This cri de coeur comes from my 8-year-old friend Marin Arnold, written when she was 7. I will translate for you her early Reformed Egyptian. Dear Bishop, General Conference was boring. Why do we have to do it? Tell me why. Sincerely, Marin Arnold. Well, Marin, the talk I'm about to give will undoubtedly disappoint you again. But when you write your bishop to complain, it's important that you tell him, my name is Kieran, Elder Patrick Kieran.
So that's Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, of course, giving him a little ribbing, but, you know, there's a little give and take in all of this. So Elder Kieran had a retort.
Marin, I'm Elder Holland, and things are about to go downhill.
So that's
for him.
Limiting that to
for
that
him.
statement to that particular conference and not saying that now he's a member of the quorum, that the same thing is going to happen. We wanted to bring in some expertise on this because, in part, people got caught a little off guard with the call coming today. Sarah Jane Weaver is the executive editor of the Church News. Sarah Jane, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start here. I think a lot of people went, wait, it's a Friday, it's December, it's a couple weeks before the holidays, and this isn't supposed to happen until April. We do these things in General Conference, April and October, but that's not always the case. That's sort of a short-term memory kind of thing.
Yes, so in recent years, calls to the Quorum of the 12 Apostles for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have been announced to the public and to the membership of the church who sustains those calls during conferences in April and October. Now, in the current 12, every single member of the current 12 was announced in General Conference, except for now Quorum President Jeffrey R. Holland. And President Holland, who was called in June of 1994, was also an off-cycle announcement. I think in this case, this is indicative of how fast the work of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is moving forward under the leadership of President Russell M. Nelson. President Nelson is fast-paced. He likes to make decisions and get things done, and apparently he received inspiration, made a call, and announced it to the public so we could get going.
I think that's what jumped out to me is that when you get to be 18 million members, give or take, and you're operating as a worldwide organization, if you take it out of a church context and think of it as any other type of organization, a business, for example, you wouldn't leave a board seat open just until you got to your next 6-month meeting. You'd probably take action on that. So it speaks to like that urgency of it's a large organization that's moving and has the work that needs to progress.
And April conference is 4 months away. I also loved that clip because it speaks to the brotherhood and the friendship and the sense of humor of everyone who was part of this quorum. They love each other. They can have fun together, and yet, just as we saw in that clip, then they get to work and tackle the global work of the church.
Sarah, tell our listeners or introduce our listeners to Elder Patrick Kieran. I mean, we don't know a lot about him until recently, or until this time. A lot of us hadn't even recognized the name. What do we know? I read his bio. It's fascinating, especially his youth, his being in a boarding school while his parents are in Saudi Arabia, and he's in I don't forget what country, but 10 years old, left alone. I mean, he's had quite an interesting upbringing.
First, I'll say, don't get me in trouble. I know something about it. Maybe you don't, but
yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
Well, Elder Kieran is English. He was born in England. And then he was raised in England, in the United States, in the Middle East, as his parents tackled certain jobs. He has been a general authority for the church since 2010, where he has led efforts in Europe and is most recently the senior member of the presidency of the 70.
Okay.
What about his professional background?
And so he and his wife have run a business specializing in communications, and they have also lived in various locations across the globe. And when you hear him speak, he really is a brilliant communicator. He has tackled issues for the church that other people have found so empathetic and compassionate. He made a very, very powerful call for Latter-day Saints to support refugees in 2016. And in his most recent conference address, which was in April of 2022, he spoke to anyone who has suffered or been a victim of abuse or oppression.
And you talked about his appointment not coinciding necessarily with conference, but with the Quorum of the 12, and there's a vacancy, and it was a vacancy caused by the passing of Russell Ballard. There's some not necessarily urgency, but a really interest in trying to fill that position and keep the quorum at its level and try to get someone in there who's obviously incredibly qualified, isn't there?
Yeah, the one thing that is most miraculous to me about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is that its organization allows it to move forward regardless of what is happening or not happening, or who is able to serve, or who earlier this year, President Holland was out for a few months while he was in the hospital and recovering from an illness, and the organization, which is a first presidency followed by the quorum, followed by support from departments at the church, executive councils of the church, and a great pool of really talented leaders that are General Authority 70s, and then area presidencies throughout the world allow the work to move forward. But at the end of the day, isn't it nice to know we have a full quorum and we have talent doing what Elder Kieran can do and bring to this position?
It's interesting that the church can avoid the red tape that so many organizations get involved with. And I appreciate how you articulated that.
Sarah Jane Weaver is the executive editor of the Church News. This was big news for church members in Utah and across the world today, so thanks very much for sharing your perspective on it.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, some final thoughts on this Friday as we wrap up on Inside Sources. Stay with us.
Denise has been playing jazz for 40 years. Last concert, one of the musicians fell sick with RSV. Respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, is a highly contagious virus that can lead to breathing problems. This time, she's choosing to help protect herself with Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo. Abrysvo is a vaccine for the prevention of lower respiratory tract disease caused by respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, in adults 60 years of age and older. Abrysvo is not for everyone and may not protect all who receive the vaccine. Don't get Abrysvo if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its ingredients. People with a weakened immune system may have a decreased response to Abrysvo. The most common side effects are tiredness, headache, pain at the injection site, and muscle pain. Ask your pharmacist or doctor about Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo, respiratory syncytial virus vaccine. For full prescribing information, please call 1-844-989-7284 or visit abrysvo.com. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact us at aimyourdigital.com for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. We are Bonneville Salt Lake. Your success starts at aimyourdigital.com.
Have you ever heard that adage that losing weight takes a long time? That's not necessarily true. 2 years ago, I started my SOTA weight loss journey. I noticed results within the first week. And the second week, I had lost even more weight. 3 quick months later, and I was down 34 pounds and hit my weight loss goal. My story is not unique for SOTA weight loss. Let's hear from Aaron.
Come in and try it, and if it's not working for you, I'd be shocked. The motivation really comes after the first week and you see the first set of numbers dropping off. It's a great way to get things going, to start turning things in the right direction again.
The average weight loss for a male is 3 to 5 pounds per week, and the average female will lose 2 to 3 pounds per week. How much weight can you lose? Call SOTA Weight Loss or visit SOTAweightloss.com. That's SOTA stands for state of the art. And find out how quickly you can reach your ideal weight with SOTA Weight Loss. It is state of the art. Call SOTA Weight Loss today and see what you can accomplish with your nutritionist. Or visit SOTAweightloss.com. That's SOTA, S-O-T-A. It's state of the art.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
the memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. It's no secret that mortgage rates have risen from historic lows over the last few years. In some cases, having a low mortgage rate can also act as so-called golden handcuffs when homeowners don't want to refinance and lose their rate. One solution to this is a home equity line of credit, or HELOC. HELOCs have higher rate than first mortgages, but they offer flexibility as they are a credit line that can be tapped into as needed. This is a way to take care of financial matters such as debt consolidation, home improvements, medical or college bills, or whatever without losing your current mortgage rate. And when rates come back down, you can refi and take out the HELOC. Call us if this is something you'd like to explore. Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Let's take a moment to appreciate our sweet children, loving grandparents, and eternal soulmates. Now let's use them to save money on wireless. Because with the Straight Talk Silver Plan, you get 4 lines for just $25 a month with unlimited data and no contracts. So add those human pawns, loved ones, and save money. Thanks, kids. They're finally worth it. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Get 4 lines on Silver Unlimited for $25 per line per month, plus taxes and fees. For data management practices and additional terms, visit straighttalk.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's suicide rate increased by 12% in 2022. Second, a teenager in Michigan has been sentenced to life in prison for the shootings at Oxford High School. 4 students were killed, several others wounded. Third, gas prices across the country have been going down. They're expected to stay low through the rest of the winter. Right now, 36 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Instead of Boyd Matheson, we have Marty Carpenter and Greg Skordas, and I'm a little tongue-tied, but it's been fun doing the show with you today, Marty, as always. And we're going to talk this next segment about a sort of a bizarre incident that occurred yesterday in Atlanta, Georgia. 2 Utah tourists are there visiting the birthplace of Martin Luther King Jr. in Atlanta. And you sort of seem to have read the article pretty closely, but they see a woman sort of appearing distressed, pouring gasoline from a can on the porch of the house. I mean, they're visiting this. It's a tourist, a place for tourists to see, the birthplace of Martin Luther King Jr. It's probably a very interesting place to see. And they go there, and this woman's pouring gasoline on the front porch. So they do what? They're videotaping it.
It's a home. It's a wooden structure, so it's got a nice wooden porch out in front of it. Like, we're not picturing a cement building or anything like that. It's not a commercial building. It's a wooden home. And yeah, the gentleman from Utah at some point took his phone out and was shooting video, and you can see the woman just sort of dousing the house and the porch with a giant red gas can. And he says, "What are you doing? That's gasoline. What are you doing?" And I'm sure he's trying to, you wouldn't see that. You would see that sort of from a distance, like you and I looking at it and go, well, she's clearly dumping gasoline all over. But if you just see it in your regular day,
right?
Well, what is she doing? Or is she supposed to be or not supposed to be here? So he confronts her, and I don't want to get too far ahead in the story, but yeah, he confronts her and essentially stops it from happening.
Yeah, well, this is a clip from a news report describing the event, including a short interview with one of the men from Utah who saw the woman pouring gasoline on the front porch of this house.
Tourists from Utah decided to stop by the birthplace of Martin Luther King Jr., only to find a woman with a gas can.
It was a little scary there for a minute because we didn't know who she was. We didn't know if she had weapons on her. We didn't know anything.
Zach says the woman seemed agitated and called police as she started to pour gas on the porch before realizing that he had to step in.
She grabbed a lighter from the grass and started to come back up the stairs. So I stood at the stairs and said, "You can't do this," and blocked her for about a minute.
I mean, that's just wild. And the authorities in Atlanta, when they were asked about what could have happened here, this is what they said.
If the witnesses hadn't been here and interrupted what she was doing, I mean, it could have been a matter of seconds before the house was engulfed in flames.
That action saved an important part of American history tonight.
You wonder how many of us would have done the same thing. I mean, you got to hand it to these fellows. I mean, they're there just looking at something. They see somebody pouring gas. I mean, there are two things you can do. You can say, walk away, this isn't my problem. Or you can jump in and do the right thing, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, and I think we've all been in the type of situation where something out of the ordinary is happening that if you think back on it, 2 hours after it happens, you go, well, this was clearly the move I should have made, and I did make, or I should have made.
Right.
But in the moment, you're like, well, wait a minute, how am I? Is this really happening? Am I perceiving this the right way? And what's my reaction? And he mentioned you don't know if she's got weapons. First, you got to figure out, is it actually gas? Now, the smell probably makes it a little more evident. But at some point, when you feel like you have to take action, which this gentleman did, and if you watch the full report, took her down to the ground, essentially tackled her and held her down until the authorities could come. You're a lawyer, you pretty much should be very sure about what you're doing before you tackle someone and put him to the ground. You need to know, I can justify this move even if I'm wrong about detail X or Y.
And in this case, absolutely justified. I mean, some of the quotes talk about the Good Samaritan laws. This isn't necessarily a Good Samaritan law, but it's somebody who's jumping in. When Good Samaritan is like you see somebody hurt on the side of the road and you decide you want to go and help them. The Good Samaritan laws prevent you from having liability if you don't correctly necessarily diagnose the injury. You unwittingly, you're trying to help, but it seems to get worse. That the Good Samaritan laws protect you, if that makes any sense. For people who just, because we want to encourage people to jump in.
Would that likely apply here? Just he doesn't know if people are inside the building that he's protecting,
Sure.
or if he's just protecting a structure. Both of those are possible.
Right, and what also applies here, Marty, is really our defense law, like self-defense or defense of others. So if you see someone who's this would be an aggravated arson if it's a dwelling. I mean, that's
a fairly serious
as
crime.
It gets, right.
Yeah.
You would have every reason to use force, including deadly force, to prevent somebody from doing that. I mean, that's not just a Good Samaritan. That's where the law stands in and says, we're going to protect you from your actions to prevent a serious crime from occurring. Like you say, you want to be fairly sure that the person's she's not just cleaning the sidewalk with some solvent, and trying to make it look pretty. I mean, but we also have this sort of implication that what does a reasonable person do? I mean, if they happen to have been wrong and she was just cleaning it, they probably would have been excused because under the circumstances it looked bad. But in this case, they saved an astronomical problem. I mean, this structure would have been destroyed, and an icon that a lot of people really have interest in seeing these type of things would have been gone probably forever.
I just think it's interesting because you can be a Good Samaritan. You can be the person who says, this seems wrong to me and I need to go protect this structure or the people who are in it. I need to stop this in one way or the other. But immediately in the year 2023, almost 2024, you're going to think, but I'm a man and that's a woman, and I can't just take her down to the ground, or I can't, how do I stop this in a way where I do it appropriately? If I saw the video correctly, I think there was a racial difference between the two. I'm sure for the gentleman that made the decision to go put a stop to this, there was at least a fleeting thought of, how does this look if I not only go tackle a woman, but a woman of color? And all of these things that sort of come into the calculation. Thank goodness he still made the right decision and went forward.
And so often, Marty, people are, because of lawsuits and because of just, I don't want to get involved, walk away from something like that. And it would have been just as easy or even easier for these two men to say, this isn't my problem. I'm going to go call 911. Of course, had they done that, by the time the authorities arrived, the place is fully engulfed. I mean, this is one of those situations where you either act quickly or your failure to act has bad consequences. Yeah. So, you got to hand it to them. I mean, these two men are heroes, and I'm sure that the people in Atlanta are thankful that this icon, this structure that should be preserved forever, really, for people to see, for people to appreciate, is saved, at least for now and hopefully forever.
And to the point where, hey, they had to make some decisions and they did the right thing. Also, most situations are not fully black and white. There's a little bit of gray in between. And the individual who was attempting to commit the arson, her father was cited in the story saying that she is a veteran.